Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Welcome to your channel The Anatomy Canvas. In today's class of Neuroanatomy we are going to discuss the midbrain, and the learning objective for the today's class are to describe the external feature of the midbrain, to discuss the internal structure of the midbrain at the level of the superior colliculus and at the level of the inferior colliculus, and to also discuss the different white matter tracts which are present in the midbrain, to discuss about the nuclei found in the gray matter, and to describe the clinical correlates related to midbrain lesions. So mainly the gross features of the midbrain, it is about 2.5 centimeter long. It is 2.5 centimeter long and 2.5 centimeter wide. It passes through the notch in the tentorium cerebelli, which is called tentorial notch. So here you can say this is the tentorium cerebelli, which is a tent-like fold of the tent-like fold, and it passes through opening in this fold, which is called the tentorial notch. So on each side of the midbrain, you can see the optic tract, the parahippocampal gyrus, and the posterior cerebral artery and basal vein. On posterior aspect, you can see the splenium of the corpus callosum, the great cerebral vein, pineal gland, and posterior end of the right and the left thalamus. And on anterior side, you can see interpeduncular fossa, which contains the mammillary bodies and the tuber cinereum. So in this diagram also you can see this is the anterior aspect. Here you can see these two are the mammillary bodies, and this part is the midbrain, and here you can see the part which is related to the pons. Here you can see emergence of the cranial nerve third. Also in this diagram you can see the blood vessels which are present. Here you can see this is the cranial nerve third which is present. Here you can see the basilar artery which is present over here, and also these are the crus cerebri and tegmentum, and here you can see the aqueduct. So these are the different relationship of the midbrain. In this diagram also you can see this is the internal carotid artery, and this is the branch of internal carotid artery which is basilar artery, which is in anterior relation of the midbrain. Here you can see the cranial nerve third and cranial nerve 4 which are present. Here you can see the mammillary bodies, and on this side crus cerebri is present, whereas on this side it is hidden. So this is the sagittal section of the midbrain, showing you the ventricular system. This one is the fourth ventricle, and here will be the third ventricle, and this is the cerebral aqueduct which connects the third ventricle with the fourth ventricle. Another diagram showing you the anterior aspect of the midbrain, and in anterior aspect you can see this is the interpeduncular fossa, and in this interpeduncular fossa you can see the mammillary bodies are present, also the optic tract which is present, and optic chiasma which is present over here. So external features, first of all we will discuss the ventral surface, and ventral surface we will be having the two crus cerebri and an interpeduncular fossa which is present over here, and this interpeduncular fossa you can see the mammillary bodies and the tuber cinereum. Here you can see emergence of the third cranial nerve between from the interpeduncular fossa, and this is the trochlear nerve which emerges on the posterior aspect and winds round the midbrain to come onto the anterior aspect. Also you can see the optic tract which is present over here. This is optic chiasma, and this one is optic tract which is related to anterior surface of the midbrain. So this is another structure of the anterior aspect of the midbrain. Another diagram. Here you can see these are the two crus cerebri, and in between these two crus cerebri you can see interpeduncular fossa. Here you can see the posterior perforated substance which is present, two mammillary bodies which are present, the tuber cinereum which is present, and infundibulum or the pituitary stalk. On each side you can see the optic tract, and in the center you can see the optic chiasma over here, and then here it is the olfactory tract. So this one was the posterior perforated substance, and here you can see the anterior perforated substance. This is the emergence of the oculomotor nerve in between the crus cerebri from the interpeduncular fossa, and this one is the fourth nerve which comes out from the midbrain from its posterior aspect and wind round the midbrain to come on to the anterior side. This is the posterior view of the midbrain. Here you can see the four swelling, two superior swelling and two inferior swelling. These four swellings are called the superior colliculi and inferior colliculi, and collectively these four swellings are called the corpora quadrigemina. These swellings are separated from each other by a cruciform sulcus or crisscross sulcus. It has a long axis and an horizontal axis which separates all the four swelling from each other. Then over here you can see the pineal body, and this cruciform sulcus at the cranial end is a depression in which pineal body is present, and the caudal and the cruciform sulcus meets with the frenulum villi of the superior medullary velum. So it is the area of the frenulum villi from where the trochlear nerve emerges, and then it decussates in the area of the superior medullary velum, wind round the midbrain and comes on to the anterior aspect. Also you can see very important structure over here. This is the medial geniculate body, and this one is the lateral geniculate body. So medial geniculate body is related with the superior colliculus through the superior brachium, and in lateral geniculate body is related to inferior colliculus via the inferior brachium. The internal structure now, when we are looking at the coronal section, we will see an aqueduct of Sylvius over here, and the structure which is present posterior to this is the tectum, and structure which is present anterior to it is called the cerebral peduncles. These cerebral peduncles then divided further into three parts. These parts is the tegmentum, the substantia nigra, and the crus cerebri. So larger anterior or ventral part is the cerebral peduncles, and smaller posterior part are the tectum of the midbrain. So first we will discuss the crus cerebri, the corticospinal and corticonuclear fibers. Here you can see in the center of these crus cerebri, you can see the corticonuclear and corticospinal fibers are present, which occupy the middle 2/3 of these crus cerebri. On the lateral aspect, you can see the temporopontine, peritopontine and occipitopontine, which occupy lateral 1/6 of the crus cerebri, while medial 1/6 of crus cerebri are occupied by the frontopontine fibers. Then the substantia nigra, this is a crescent shaped curved mass. It is a pigmented because it contains the pigmented melanin in it and gives it a blackish color. It is divided into two parts. The dorsal part, which contains compact arrangement of the nucleus, called pars compacta, and the ventral part, which contains a loose arrangement of the gray matter, called pars reticularis. This red nucleus is attached to the corpus striatum via nigrostriatal fibers. Then the gray matter, the transverse section, we will discuss the difference between the between different part is that the tectum, the crus cerebri and the substantia nigra are same at both the level. The difference are present in the level of the tegmentum and tectum. So first we will see the midbrain at the level of the inferior colliculi. So here you can see these are the inferior colliculi and their nuclei which are present over here. So at the level of the inferior colliculi, in the midline just anterior to the cerebral aqueduct and just posterior to medial longitudinal fasciculus, you can see the nuclei of the trochlear nerve which are present over here. In addition to this one is the central gray matter. In lateral part of the central gray matter, we can see the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. So the gray matter which are present at this level will be the nuclei of the inferior colliculus, the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, nucleus of the trochlear nerve, the substantia nigra, and the reticular formation which is present over here. So this one is the gray matter. And now we will discuss the white matter of the midbrain at the level of the inferior colliculus. So first you can see just anterior to the trochlear nerve is the medial longitudinal fasciculus, and anterior to this medial longitudinal fasciculus is the tectospinal tract. Then here you can see the decussation of the fibers of the superior cerebellar peduncles, and then anterior to superior cerebellar peduncle is the ribrospinal tract. So these are the midline fiber tracts which are present over here. In addition to midline tract, the lemnisci are present in a form of the curved mass. From medial to lateral direction, first you can see the medial lemniscus, then you can see trigeminal, the spinal lemniscus, and most posterior of it, which is posterior to spinal lemniscus, is lateral lemniscus, which is attached to the inferior colliculi. So please remember, this lateral lemniscus is related to auditory tract, and the fibers of the auditory tract passes to the lateral lemniscus. They constitute the lateral lemniscus, and then they relay in the inferior colliculus. So when we will discuss the cross section at the level of the superior colliculi, we will not see the lateral lemniscus. So at the level of inferior colliculi, 4 lemnisci are present. So the fiber tract which are present over here, I just repeat, this is the medial longitudinal fasciculus, then the tectospinal tract, the decussation of superior cerebellar peduncles, then the rubrospinal tract, the 4 lemnisci which are medial longitudinal, which is medial lemniscus, the trigeminal lemniscus, the spinal, and the lateral lemniscus. Now transverse section of the midbrain at the level of the superior colliculi. So again I repeat that the crus cerebri are same at all the levels. So differences are in the tectum and the tegmentum. So in tectum you can see the superior colliculus and its nucleus. Then in the midline, this is the central gray matter, and in anterior to the central gray matter you can see nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, both the motor nucleus and the parasympathetic nucleus, which is Ettinger-Westphal nucleus. These are present in a form of a triangular shaped mass, and just posterolateral to it is the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Then in lateral part of the central gray matter, you can see this is the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Just anterior to medial nucleus of superior colliculus, you can see the nucleus, the pretectal nucleus, which are present, and a large structure which is present at this level is the red nucleus. This is the red nucleus which is present over here. Then again the crus cerebri and the nicrostriatal fiber. This is the ventral tegmental decussation, and this is the dorsal tegmental decussation. So fibers which relay in the superior colliculus, they decussate over here, forming the dorsal tegmental decussation of Maynard, and then they crosses to opposite side and then they ascend. Similarly, the fibers which relay in the red nucleus, the motor fiber, the efferent fibers of the red nucleus, then they decussate in the anterior part of the tectum, and they form the ventral tegmental decussation of the forehead. So the gray matter consists of oculomotor nucleus, the mesencephalic, the superior colliculus nucleus, the pretectal, and the red nucleus. And the white matter consists of the dorsal tegmental decussation, the ventral tegmental decussation, the medial longitudinal fasciculus, the 3 lemnisci. As I have told you, the lateral lemniscus ends into inferior colliculus. So you cannot see the lateral lemniscus over here. So 3 lemnisci are present: medial, trigeminal, and spinal lemniscus, and emerging fibers of the oculomotor nerve which emerge from their nuclei, and they run anteriorly, passing through the red nucleus and emerge into the anterior part of the crus cerebri in the interpeduncular fossa. So these are the connections of the red nucleus, the very important connection of the red nucleus. Here you can see the red nucleus. So red nucleus can have the ipsilateral incoming fibers, the efferent fibers from the thalamus, the subthalamic nuclei, the cerebral cortex, and the globus pallidus, and also the substantia nigra. So very important point, these all are the ipsilateral. While the efferent connections of this red nucleus nucleus are from the cerebellum, which are passing to the superior cerebellar peduncles. They cross to the opposite side, and then they have the connection with the red nucleus. The efferent fibers of the red nucleus crosses to the opposite side and forming the rubrospinal and rubroreticular tract, and they cross to the opposite side and then they descend. So these are the efferent fibers. These are efferent fibers, and out of efferent fibers, the fiber from thalamus, fibers from subthalamic nuclei, fibers from the cerebral cortex, the substantia nigra, and the globus pallidus, all are ipsilateral, while fibers from dentate nucleus of the cerebellum are the contralateral, and its efferent supply is contralateral, which form the ventral tegmental decussation. These are simplified diagram to show the component of the medial longitudinal fasciculus. So throughout the midbrain and throughout the brainstem, we are discussing about the medial longitudinal fasciculus. This is very important, and it is related to the conjugate eye movements of the eye movements, and also to maintain the body posture according to the different stimuli. So that is why it is related to different structures. So this is the interstitial nucleus of Cajal, which is present at the junction of the midbrain and the diencephalon, and it has, first of all, this is the accessory oculomotor nucleus, and it has connection with the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Then the connections of the oculomotor nucleus to the medial longitudinal fasciculus, then to trochlear nerve, then the abducent nerve, the nucleus of the lateral lemniscus also having connection with the medial longitudinal nerve. This is the vestibular nucleus complex. It is superior, lateral, medial, and inferior nuclei, and all of these nuclei having connection with the medial longitudinal fasciculus. And again, this is the spinal nucleus of the accessory nerve. So this medial longitudinal fasciculus has connection with different nuclei of the cranial nerve in the brain stem, and also the spinal nucleus of the accessory nerve, and at the level of the spinal cord, it becomes continuous with the spinal intersegmental tract of the spinal cord. So these are the different connections of the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Again, very important clinical correlates related to the midbrain. So first of all, this is the Weber's syndrome, and this Weber's syndrome affects the basilar part of the midbrain. So in this Weber's syndrome, you can see fibers of oculomotor nerve are involved. The fibers from the fibers from the substantia nigra, area of the substantia nigra is involved, and also the large area of the crus cerebri is involved. So the lesion, first of all, when the oculomotor nerve will be involved, there will be squint of the eyes, there will be ptosis of the eyes because of the drooping of the eyelid, because of the damage to palpebral levator palpebrae superioris, which will be affected, and also there will be loss of the light reflex and accommodation reflex because of the damage to the parasympathetic fibers, which are carried through the oculomotor nerve. Also, the nigrostriatal fibers will be affected, and the corticopontine and corticobulbar and corticospinal fibers will be affected, which will be passing through this area, and because these are the motor fibers, so as a result of damage to these fibers, there will be contralateral hemiplegia of the body and contralateral paresis of the lower face and teeth area because of the damage to this area. So this is the Weber syndrome. Another syndrome is the Benedict syndrome, and in this syndrome you can see this is the red nucleus, and then the medial spinal and trigeminal lemnisci. These are affected because of some vascular region. So because of damage to the medial spinal and trigeminal lemnisci, there will be loss of the pain, touch, and temperature sensation on opposite side of the body, and also because of the damage to the red nucleus, there will be loss of the there will be tremors in contralateral side of the body. In addition to these lesions, the third nerve fibers are also passing through this area through the red nucleus. So the when third nerve will be involved, there will be squinting of the eyes, there will be ptosis, and there will be loss of accommodation reflex and the light reflex also. So these are the lesions which are present. So this is the Weber syndrome and this is the Benedict syndrome. There again the cranial nerve nuclei in a sagittal section. You can see this is the accessory nucleus or the Ettinger-Westphal nucleus, and this one is the red nucleus, and this is the nucleus of the oculomotor. These two nuclei, the accessory nucleus, the Ettinger-Westphal nucleus, and the oculomotor are present close to each other, and they are having connection. Their fibers of the nerve are passing through the red nucleus, and posteriorly you can see this is the nucleus of the trochlear nerve. Again in this section you can also see, so over here at this level you can see Ettinger-Westphal nucleus, the oculomotor nucleus, and trochlear nucleus. So these two nerves emerges through the midbrain and their nuclei are present over here. 4 nerves emerges through the pons and 4 from the medulla. So the nerve which emerges from the pons are the trigeminal nerve and its nucleus, abducens nerve nucleus, facial nerve nucleus, and then the vestibulocochlear nerve nucleus, the vestibular complex, and cochlear. So these 4 nerves are emerging through the pons and 4 nerves emerging through the medulla oblongata. So this is the nucleus of the hypoglossal nerve. So this one is the dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve. This is nucleus ambiguus. These are the salivatory nuclei. This is the tractus solitarius which is present over here, and this is the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve, and here you can see the accessory nucleus. So these are the different nuclear group which are related to the nerves emerging through the medulla. These are the nuclear group which are related to the nerves emerging through the pons, and these are the nuclear nerves which are related, nuclei which are related to nerves emerging through the midbrain. So here I complete my today's class. References for the today's class are the Carpenter's Human Neuroanatomy, its 9th edition, the Gray's Anatomy by the Susan Standings, 40th edition, and Textbook of Clinical Neuroanatomy, the 3rd edition by Vishram Singh. Thank you very much for your attention, and Allah Hafiz till the next class.